As artists, we're oftentimes wondering what kind of medium do we want to use for our next piece? What do we want to paint? What do we want to draw? But what if we oftentimes think about the surface that we use? I ended up finding these old chipboards that I had used when I was running my Etsy shop, and I'd use them as backings behind prints. But what if I painted or drew on it? What kind of textures could I get from the board itself? What kind of colors would come up with the undertone of the brown? Might as well go ahead and experiment and find out for myself. This is when the thinking process came in for the medium itself. Do I use graphite, charcoal, colored pencils, maybe even paint? Would watercolor work? Probably not. It's brown, watercolor needs to absorb into something. So I decided to go ahead and take a couple of swatches. Starting off with graphite, changing the hardness of the lead itself from a B and an H. Used some charcoal, used ink pens, colored pencils, just to kind of experiment, see where this could take me, and went from there. This first piece was all about experimentation, honestly. I started off with a light sketch of some flowers and used colored pencils to color it in. The reason behind this decision for me personally was so that way I could get used to the boards themselves. I wanted to understand how the texture was, how would it come up, and also experiment with some color, see how it would pop against the brown undertone of the board itself. It honestly worked out really well in the end for the next two paintings that I would end up doing, and it allowed me to better understand the surface. As I had mentioned, I would end up making two paintings. The first one I unfortunately did not record, but it was my first time using acrylic paints in a very, very long time. And after the fact, I started looking up how to use acrylic paint because I actually did struggle a little bit with this. And the blending was super tough to do. I realized that the paint was just absorbing straight into the chipboard. And turns out I needed something called gesso. And I would end up purchasing some clear gesso so that way the color of the chipboard would still be able to show through and not be covered in white. So that way it was a surface for the acrylic paint to sit on rather than being absorbed into the board. Once the gesso was dried and how it needed to be, it was time to paint. I decided to jump straight into it without a sketch, just to have fun and experiment. Again, this is my first time painting on a gessoed chipboard, even with acrylic paint. and especially after me watching several YouTube videos on how to use acrylic paint in the first place. After a long time of painting and having so much fun creating this, it was completely done, and it was time to finally take the tape off. I hope that you guys enjoyed coming along with me in experimenting with a new surface as well as a new medium. I hope this inspired you to do the same. Feel free to let me know if you have any acrylic tips, and I hope that you have a great day. See you next time.